Welcome to 7997 with your host Chris and Jackie, two black immigrants living our best life in Mexico. And part of that is taking you guys' advice. So this week, you guys have been asking us on the reaction to Calle Trece video to look at Residente's This Is Not America featuring Ebeye. Ebeye? Yeah. So we're going to do that. Thanks to you guys for the recommendation. Keep the recommendations coming because y'all seem to like the reaction videos, so we should probably keep doing them.
And it seems as though he listens to y'all. So can y'all make some other requests? You know, I'll send y'all little notes on the side of what I'd like for him to do. And with that, baby, you roll that beautiful bean footage. Hi, everybody. Y'all ready to go? Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Estamos aquí, oye, que estamos aquí, mírame, estamos aquí.
So it feels like we're starting from a place of rebellion, disarray,
Yeah.
revolution,
Yeah.
fighting back.
Did you say rebellion?
Rebellion.
Yeah. Something's popping off.
And then even the images of sort of the younger indigenous person in the middle kind of just sets the tone that, you know, not only this rebellious against probably the powers that be, the government, what have you, but also there's an indigenous angle to it as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, something's already popped off.
It's already popped off.
Within the first 26 whole seconds. But the very first shot, though, very prim, proper, attractive, very fair-skinned young lady, and she's popping off 3 shots. Mm-hmm. And obviously the police were right there.
They was waiting.
They were already there, right? So
I mean, she had the gun out. They should have.
Right. But I mean, she's sounding some alarm.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a desperation call somewhere, and it didn't match.
Yeah.
Because she did not look like she should have a pistol and about to get, arrested or whatever. Like, what's going? It's already just starting off.
Yeah, and even musically, like the group of Bayu, which I'm familiar with, it's a set of twin sisters.
Oh, okay.
Who do, it's kind of soulful, a little R&B, but more, no other better word than like native or indigenous or cultural tribal sounding kind of music to some extent. So like they're sort of, it's really a signature chant for them. I know they have songs in some indigenous languages as well, I believe. But that sort of ringing of the alarm, as you said, kind of fits with the chant of their tone of voice that they have. This sort of, which feels like an alarm going on. So like, I think
And I heard drums too.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's about to be on.
Yeah.
Desde hace rato, cuando ustedes llegaron, ya estaban las huellas de nuestros zapatos. Se robaron hasta la comida de gato y todavía se están lamiendo el plato. Bien encabronados con estos ingratos. Hoy le doy duro a los tambores hasta que me acusen de maltrato. Si no entiendes el dato, pues te lo tiro en cumbia, bossa nova, tango o vallenato. A lo calaboy y bambú, bien frontú, consciente.
So if you go back, and he said, basically our footprints were here before, right? So we're always here, always have been here. And the folks in the middle, tangoing or salsa dancing in the midst of all the turmoil, it's just screaming out to me that no matter what is going on, whatever colonization, especially the negative pieces of colonization and aspects of it have happened, is happening, will happen, you cannot take away our culture. And we're still gonna look good going through. Did you see him? I think the brother had a tux on and baby girl had on some beaded dresses and stuff. Yeah. A beaded dress, but you're not going to take away my culture. I am still gonna dance. I am still gonna represent no matter what.
Yeah. I mean, I had a slightly different take on that because those cultures are not necessarily indigenous, right? You're talking about tango and
Well,
bossa nova.
those are, it's a mixture.
Influences of colonization. There's
That's
some
why I
mixture
said
in
the
there.
negative pieces.
Yeah.
We're still going to dance. We're still going to get dressed, and we still are going to. We're still going to be who we are, and who we are is an amalgamation. Did I say it right?
Okay, yeah.
Did I say that? Y'all better stop it. But it's going to be because of where I come from, who I come from, right? We're raised by our community. So if it's a mixed community, you're going to have a mixed outcome, right? So irrespective of that piece of it, we can, of course, at the end, we could probably see that, and even you look in the mirror, something beautiful has come out of that trauma, drama, stress, oppression, but we're going to do it no matter what.
And even that symbolism of the Native American or indigenous Statue of Liberty, and even like me learning recently that the Statue of Liberty was originally for the freedom of slavery in America, and then that even gets turned into sort of a calling to
European immigrants.
European masses to kind of come to the United States. So even that symbol of like, this original symbol was for the oppression of black people, but there was even people oppressed before that, that you came in and destroyed and took the land from, that are maybe even as deserving or more deserving of having this monument to them, of the land that you have taken from them, the things that you have stolen. So, the Statue of Liberty of being its true symbol of, hey, you finally maybe stopped the oppression, you have broken free from the oppression to some extent, even deserves an earlier version of, that Statue of Liberty that's maybe pre-slavery, that looks at the harm that the U.S. has done to indigenous peoples on their land. There's a lot there to kind of unpack in that, for sure.
So you're connecting that indigenous person that was just standing erect in the first couple of seconds as a statue?
No, there's a shot in there with like the Statue of Liberty, but it's an indigenous person.
Oh, okay.
It was like a brief, quick.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the brother got me. Okay, because I was
caught
like,
it. She didn't catch it, but I caught it. I be paying attention.
But that's good though. That's good. We see certain things. Yeah. Okay.
And there's a lot of quick images in here, so there's things that you may not catch on the first watch, but you'll kind of, as you go back through a second time, you might catch it. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Let's do it.
And there's also that shot of him in the room with the guns floating around him. And like, you'll see it'll come up again, I'm sure, but that's sort of his main rap shot. Okay. But he's like moving through the room, and there's 300 guns pinned on him, and they're constantly tracking his movements and following him where he goes, which obviously feels like a lot of life in the U.S. where there's guns everywhere, and they almost feel like they may be trained on you at any second of the day.
But that's also where a lot of that oppression started. That was their main tool.
Yeah.
Right. They weaponized religion. They weaponized exterior. They weaponized their size, and they weaponized. Forgive me for saying it this way, but the only way I can say it is misunderstanding and ignorance. So, for example, the indigenous people thought that this man on a horse, they'd never seen a horse. So they thought that they were this mythical thing, a god, if you will, coming in. And it's like, wow, I need to bow down to this great figure. But it was just another man. He was on an animal. It wasn't a donkey. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, they weaponized
so
lack of
many
knowledge.
things. Yeah, that's what I mean, ignorance. Not that people are stupid, but when they didn't know, they saw something different. You know what I mean? And so they weaponized so many things.
Even going back to, the splitting of the Catholic Church and the Lutheran Church, of like, there was a point where printing was monopolized, and if you wanted to see what was in the Bible,
you had to know.
You had to have a printed copy, and you had to be able to read the language that was in it.
And you had to have money to buy it.
Right.
It just wasn't free gospel. Right.
So, like, being able to give access to the masses to look at what was actually in that book made a huge difference to the understanding of people, and understanding that, hey, we were actually being taken over. We were actually being duped because we didn't have access to information. And I think in a lot of ways,
it still happens.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, yeah, let's pick it back up.
That was only 51 seconds, y'all.
Sangre caliente como Timbuktu. Estamos dentro del menú. Tupac se llama Tupac por Tupac Amaru del Perú. América no es solo USA, papá. Esto es desde Tierra del Fuego hasta Canadá. Hay que ser bien bruto, bien hueco. Es como decir que África es solo Marruecos. Estos canallas se les olvidó que el calendario que usan se lo inventaron los mayas con la Valdivia precolombina desde hace tiempo. Este continente camina, pero ni con toda la marina pueden sacar de la vitrina la peste campesina. Esto va para el capataz de la empresa. El machete no es solo para cortar caña, también es para cortar cabeza.
Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerde. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. Aquí estamos, siempre estamos. No nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerde. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. Si quieres mi machete te muerde.
I think I'm a little surprised by how much the Catholic symbolism seems to be, and maybe I'm missing the point of it, but it seems like it's highlighted in a positive way in this space. Because I tend to pull in the Catholicism as a colonizer like any other colonizer, whether it's Spain or it's Portugal or it's Europe or, Britain. And to me, a lot of that colonization that happened on this entire continent was pushed by the Catholic Church.
We just said it. They weaponized.
It. And it's like, I don't know if he's necessarily trying to make a connection between the two, that symbolism is positive along with the indigenous culture, or if it's a negative in that way. But it feels to me like it's brought in a way that it feels like it's part of their culture in a positive way. And I'm just curious why, and I'm sure in the comments y'all will chime into, whether it is looked at it that way or not. But it feels like Catholicism is brought into the culture in a way that feels positive and not as a colonizing force.
Well, I'll say something just as my Christian belief. I am a Christian, right? And it was brought over here again to weaponize and to destroy us, meaning to put us under the thumb of the oppressor, of the messenger, right? But this is my true belief, that you cannot stop the power of God. And God is bigger than the messenger, meaning those human people. So what they meant to hurt, God turned that around for good. That is my true belief, that yes, some of my ancestors, some of our ancestors came over on a boat and all the things, right? And then the ones who were already here, they were oppressed by those bringers of said gospel. They did bring the gospel. They brought the gospel. They lived a lower G gospel because they wanted to elevate themselves to be gods, to be served. However, this is just my own personal belief, they gave us the real capital G gospel while they lived by the lowercase g gospel. So shame on them that they didn't take the gospel. They used it to weaponize and to destroy, hurt, and harm, whereas what they gave us was actually the medicine that the true gospel really is. It is freeing, right? So you can be indigenous and come from a place and look a certain way, have songs, have drum beats, or whatever it is that you came from, and you can actually still have the gospel too. So I think we are the true recipients of the true gospel, because there's a blind faith, there's a love for people and family. We're not using it to hurt other people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what the real gospel is. It's freeing, whereas they used it to put people in bondage.
Yeah.
So shame on them for not taking for not taking it too.
Yeah.
Sorry, they weren't free. But I also wanted to say something too about this is the second film we've done or review that we've done, but when it comes to folks in Mexico, South America, they make sure to school us on from their perspective, they are American too, right? And recently, we just had we all still going through the political leadership in the USA, right, and in Washington, battling not only Mexico, but they also are battling Canada,
and
right.
Everybody they can feel like
everybody else,
at this point,
right?
They want to battle,
right? Except Russia. But I have heard and or read pushback from Canadians, right? And what they said, we're not Americans. I find that to be interesting. That they said they're not Americans, even though they're on the North American continent, right? Literally, you cross a bridge, you can cross a street, and you will be in another country, right? But they say explicitly, we're not American. So there is a understanding, at least for some north of the USA border, that they're Canadian. They're not American. But south of the US border, there is I'm American because I am on the American continent, North American continent. I find that to be interesting.
There is, number one, more than one meaning to American. We happen to have come from a country called the United States of America.
And we're in this is the United States of Mexico.
This is the United States of Mexico.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that.
Nobody walks around here saying they're U.S. citizens. They say they are Mexican.
Correct.
And
they never say I'm American until there's a political conversation.
Right. So as being someone from the United States of America, you can be a U.S. citizen. You can be an American. If you want to talk about the entire continent, you can say you are American as well. Those have different connotations and different meanings to them, even though they are the same word. That word can mean more than one thing. And I will say in a lot of instances, it is used to exclude people. And I think that's what people are pushing back against is that American attitude more so than the word American, of like Americans, and this isn't necessarily across the board of every American, citizen, but from the country you get that viewpoint out into the world that America is better than everyone else, and we are somehow separate and above the rest of the continent, and not only the rest of the continent but the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And I think the current administration, as you talk about, definitely, even though some people have that perception outside of America because of our PR campaign and thinking that America is the land of the free and the brave and flowing amber waves of grain and all this, and it's the place to be.
Reciting what was that? Go ahead.
I mean, once this particular, administration is in power, it is changing that perception for a lot of people. And I think you then couple that with the proliferation of the internet and the proliferation of folks just being able to see all the things that are outside of, our borders. And there's a lot of things that we just did not realize were out there. Us being here in Mexico is one of those things. Like, you don't hear a lot good about Mexico living in the U.S. for a long time. You hear a lot of the negatives. You hear the cartel stuff. You might see, a TV show that's based in Mexico every once in a while, but you don't get sort of the everyday real life. What are people like? What is the environment like? And once you actually see it, you're like, wow, this is,
and don't forget Hollywood.
Not what they told me. Right.
Right. Hollywood, because you see TV shows, you see movies, who's going to be the gangster? They're either going to be an Italian and they got the, got the hard boss, they got the accent.
Yeah.
They're going to be black or they're going to be Mexican. Yeah. Those are going to be your bad guys.
Yeah.
And they never show the pure indigenous beauty and historical fortitude and all of the things, you know what I mean, that make a people a people. Yeah. Man, it's wild.
So I say all that to say, like, the perception of the US of A in the world has been and is still continuing to change and evolve.
It ebbs and flows, right?
Even when you see this administration, fighting back against Ukraine and supporting Russia, that just feels like a backwards move from the way that the U.S. has particularly handled their situation abroad and other people's situation abroad. So like the perception of the country from the within is changing as well as externally is changing. So like calling out that idea that, I shouldn't say the idea, the fact that America is the continent, the same way Africa is the continent. And Africa has a opposite battle, right? Like Africa is not a country; it's a continent. So like people look at, oh, do you speak African? Are you like, no, there's no African language. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of languages on that continent.
Right.
There are individual countries there, and like it's really strange that there's a difference in the way that those two continents are portrayed, whereas one is looked as one whole and everything comes from there is the same, and it's not. It's very varied. And when we talk about the American continent, we look at each individual country by itself. It's not looked at as a whole in the same way.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of interesting kind of takes to kind of think about there. But yeah, I mean, so far I'm enjoying the song in and of itself and the messaging that kind of comes along with it. And this idea of like the machete, which to me, I think if there's one symbol I've seen from not only Mexico, but I think countries that have hot jungle environments, whether it's Vietnam,
you better be ready.
in Africa, like the machete is the thing, like it's the universal tool, and that tool can also be a weapon at the same time. So I think that's an interesting analogy to kind of pull up as, you know.
Yeah, it can be used for good or for bad.
For good or for bad.
And that's, to me, that's how
like
are you using
swords into plowshares kind of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even the word, right? Because we talk about the gospel, we talk about all these things. Like, how are you using your tools? Are you using them for good, or are you using them to hurt? Right?
Quiere mi machete, te muerde, te muerde, te muerde.
Los paramilitares, las guerrillas, los hijos del conflicto, las pandillas, las listas negras, los falsos positivos, los periodistas asesinados, los desaparecidos, los narcogobiernos, todos los que robaron, los que se manifiestan y los que se olvidaron, las persecuciones, los golpes de estado, el país en quiebra, los exiliados, el peso devaluado, el tráfico de droga, los carteles, las invasiones, los emigrantes sin papeles, 5 presidentes en 11 días, disparo a quemarropa por parte de la policía, más de 100 años de tortura, la nova trova cantando en plena dictadura, somos la sangre que sopla la presión.
You calling out the boxes?
Come on, Amazon deliveries with the Indigenous baby. Oh my Lord. Yeah, it's and you really just if you didn't have any words and you're just looking at it off the screen, and you know how they have everybody pictured, how they have everybody dressed, and then of course it's not an accident that the man in 20 seconds ago appeared to be someone of high power, right? So that could have been the CEO of Amazon, that could have been a president of said colonized country, and he looked European, right? So he's in the fanciest suit, eating the finest meals, right? And the napkin was the flag.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's it, right? It's that I need to be the conqueror. You know what I mean? And it's not even for survival. It's not even that, you know what I mean? Because let's just be clear, there is more than enough for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And it's also not only more than enough for everybody, but there's more than enough for everybody to stay they behind where they came from. Let's just be let's just be abundantly clear that we all don't have the same natural resources, but we all have natural resources, from Ireland to Australia to the Americas to Africa. You may not have gold, but you got some cotton, you got a potato, you have something to import, export, and trade with another person, community, or country.
Yeah.
We don't have to go and conquer and destroy, pillage a people and a land just so that we can have filet mignon. Because the last I saw, there's a cow in Europe that you can have a filet and have just traded whatever it is you have there, your beautiful spring water. I mean, whatever, right?
Yeah.
You did not have to cross the water or waters to take. You literally could have just traded. We have more than enough.
Yeah.
But that wiping his mouth with that flag.
I mean, and like the wiping them out with the flag, and then Amazon boxes as a symbol of like big business. To me, and I believe this is what, maybe a couple years old song. It's not a brand new song, but it still kind of even relates to modern times of having big businessmen, Elon Musk, come to the U.S. and trying to find this quote unquote waste, and there's plenty of waste to find, but really just kind of cutting down and taking from everyday people. And in the, I think the goal was really to prop up whatever business interests he had, because he has, a space company that he's trying to have contracts with the U.S. He's trying to get certain government agencies deregulated so he can do whatever he wants with his businesses. So like it's that same sort of metaphor of, I'm going to come in, I'm going to slash and burn, I'm going to take over, I'm going to do whatever I want to do in order to give myself a nice payday. And even now it's looking like some of it is backfiring.
Correct.
Because a lot of the money he makes is built on the perception of who he is and what he does.
And what he can do, yeah.
And now that people are seeing him in a different light, the things that are based off of this false value on the stock market are now losing money. He's losing contracts. And he's shooting himself in the foot. But it also creates an environment in the country where when the stock market goes down, people who have money have the ability to buy.
To buy, correct.
So even if he's still rich enough that if the stock market goes down, he can find another way to make money.
Correct.
He can go buy something up for cheap and then,
Correct.
do something in the
rebound.
government to bring it back more value. So really it's the same situation that's happening. It's interesting that it's happening to the U.S. now, that a South African richest man in the world is coming in and manipulating our system.
Who would ever thought
and
an African?
extracting money from it to his own benefit.
Right. And to the other's detriment, which is the whole point, right?
Right.
And then I think what's also important to note is that they used Amazon, I think specifically because the Amazon rainforest, right? And then you have the indigenous people who are there, and they've been trying to fight. But how do you fight a machine that is so strong, that is so well stocked, right? And can literally just come in and wipe out the forest. But under those trees are people, and not only people, but some of the lasting or, very few communities of indigenous people who are totally uncolonized, who are totally living off of the natural land, right? And so their homes are being destroyed. And so I think it's dual purpose to use Amazon, right? And then one of the, I think, byproducts too that's so sad about colonization is that you then become dependent on that new system. When was the last time we got an Amazon? Yesterday. When was the last? Pretty much everybody, right? So it's not only have you hurt us, you are hurting us, you are not changing your ways, but now I'm addicted to your product, goods and services. So now I'm even making you stronger. And that just sucks. I hate that.
And like companies like Amazon as well are destroying all kinds of small businesses that were able to make money within their communities, and now all of a sudden Amazon can undercut them, can charge cheaper, can get it to your house quicker.
Malls are dying.
Right.
I mean, all kinds of things.
Even here in San Miguel, there was a Walmart that was going to be built that now I believe, thankfully, is not going to be built. And people were really like, hey, we don't want this Walmart in our community because it's going to destroy small business here. But the kicker to that is like we already have Bodega Herrera, which is owned by Walmart. So it's like, number one, why do you need another one in such a small town? And number two, you already have something here that probably is already destroying small business. Like, why are we not trying to take that out of the community as well?
Yeah, well, it's already here, and once the community gets addicted, I've never gone through there, and there's not a car there.
Oh, it's always
right.
packed.
So people are buying and things of that nature. But I'm gonna tell you what is set up on the outside of that Walmart is the fresh flower cart, is the snack cart. Okay, so let's be clear. They're going to tag along. Like, okay, cool. If you're here, we couldn't stop you from building. You're here, but I'm going to use this space in this area, and I'm gonna set up my torta stand. My
like whatever you give me, I'm gonna try and use to my advantage.
That's
in the
correct.
best way that I can. Yeah.
That is correct. Yeah. But good congratulations to those who did push back.
Yeah.
And was like, enough is enough. Like, we gotta keep it, tame a little bit. We don't need all that.
La sangre que sopla la presión atmosférica. Gambino, mi hermano, esto sí es América.
Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerde. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. Aquí estamos, siempre estamos, no nos fuimos, no nos vamos. Aquí estamos pa' que te recuerde. Si quieres mi machete te muerde. 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 Te muerde, te muerde.
I'm not about to cry. You about to cry? I know you're not gonna cry. He's not a crier.
No, but
It's a lot.
it is a lot.
It's a lot. They
And you
really
can see
just,
like it was a playoff of Childish Gambino's "This Is America,"
Correct.
which talks about
the violence.
connected but different issues,
Mm-hmm.
more internal to the country. More so, this is internal to the continent, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of talks about it on a bigger scale, and definitely not as. I don't want to say "This Is America" is satirical, but there's a humorous edge to it.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of parts of Childish Gambino's video, in this one, there's like no humor. There's
No humor. Zero.
Raw for sure. Violence, like he wants to get his point across in a blunt and obvious way.
Correct.
There's still things in there to interpret, but it's not like, oh, what is he talking about? Is this about? Like, no, it's pretty clear.
In your face.
A lot of the topics he's
It
talking
is
about.
in your face. Yeah, there's no hiding from it. Not hiding from the message at all.
Yeah.
Because at the very, very end, they spell out America with violence.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And death and destruction. And I have a question for the viewers too. Why does it only plague the brown part of America and then of course the middle part? So why is it only the US and south of the border? Why doesn't it plague Canada the way that it plagues us?
I think it does.
Like they have 2 murders per capita. Like there are still communities that they don't even lock their doors, right?
I mean, I guess, but I'm not up on Canadian history in any way, shape, or form. But I do know there were Indigenous people in that area that are now disenfranchised to some more Eskimo Indigenous, more so than some of the other tribes you'll find in lower portions of the continent. But I don't know that history of, were they forcefully removed? Were they, murdered and slaughtered? I'm sure there's some of that because that's just the way things happen on this earth.
Yeah.
But you definitely don't hear about it.
That's this ongoing nightmare
Right.
that the brown countries experience.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
That's a question for you guys. If y'all help us out, and maybe I'll do some research too because it interests me.
Definitely
for sure.
more to learn about in that instance for sure.
Yeah, and it's something that came out of the last segment, which I thought was so beautiful and it reminded me of Mexico City. What a lot of people don't know is that there are archaeological sites right here in Mexico. Right, sometimes Mexico is easier to get to than, let's say, Africa, if you will, or parts of Europe. But you literally can come here and you have those sites where indigenous Mayan and the Aztecs and all those people, they lived, built beautiful cities, right? And you can still come because there was like, did you see it?
Yeah, the cityscape with the pyramid in the middle.
With the pyramid. There are pyramids right here.
And like, it's not that extreme in Mexico City the way it's visualized, but it is the same thing. Like, there is pyramids in the middle of Mexico City.
Literally, right? Mexico City, even close to here. There are pyramids like 30 minutes outside of San Miguel.
And the pyramids that are in Mexico are actually bigger than the ones in Africa. Like, the biggest pyramids are here, you know, on this continent, and not necessarily in Africa. And like, I don't think they are talked about and maybe appreciated in the same way as the African pyramids are for whatever reason. But it's interesting, like you're saying, there's so much history here that just isn't visible because, like, none of it exists in the U.S. of A. And it all exists outside, and you kind of only hear about the negativity out of these other countries rather than about all the beautiful people and culture and history that's there that makes this entire continent great. And it's not just, you know, the modern accomplishments of the U.S. that make this continent great.
Right.
It is everything from Argentina to Alaska that make this, you know, great. So like, there's more to talk about and more for us to understand. And even now in the U.S., they're trying to narrow that sight of what is actually in history. They're trying to erase things in history now. And like, it's up to us to like maintain these things to music and other artistic outlets to make sure that people understand that even though they're trying to remove and wipe away this history, it is still here. There are still people that know and remember, and we all have to pass it along.
And that's exactly what that's a point also that was threaded through this, you know, through the video. That's I thought it was beautiful how they kept bringing in the indigenous people, you know, and bringing in the elders, you know, that lady that walked through, you know, with her regalia on and things like that. You cannot erase, no matter how much you try, because and this is the thing, even though you can take a lot of us out, you can't take all of us out. So you can try if you will, but you cannot destroy all of us. And at the very end, you still going to have buildings that are still standing and that have stood for thousands and thousands of years. You can't erase that. You know what I mean? And you can't say, only if you can say it, you can lie about it. An alien did the, you know, okay, you can lie about it, but we know the truth. Man built that.
I mean, there was a comedian I've heard, I can't remember which comedian it was, but like, he said, like, in Africa, there's all these, you know, aliens came down to help the Egyptians build the pyramids or whatever, but no one says that about Mexicans because they understand that Mexicans are hard workers and they built everything in the U.S. of A. So like, nobody doubts that Mexicans could build pyramids. Like, there's no doubt in their minds that they built those pyramids because they built everything. So like, it was an interesting, because I don't hear that alien thing so much about.
That narrative is nowhere else.
Yeah, maybe a little bit about the Mayans saying they connect with aliens a little bit, but not as much as in Africa where, you know,
they question all of our science.
Anything that, you know, dark brown people, black people.
Right. But there's
always some question about it.
They are, that's where it all started. That's just scientifically proven. You even, you know, it's just a thing. That's where it all started. Your math, your science, all of the things. But this was hard. Thank you for starting my day like this.
I mean, sure. I hope you guys enjoy that. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. If you enjoy the video, you know, let us know.
Please do.
Give us some more recommendations for things that are in a similar vein. Like, is there something that talks more about indigenous culture, Mexico, USA? Like, what are the things that you guys are kind of watching to learn a little bit more and understand the inner workings of the history of this continent? We
share
love to
your
see
feedback,
some more.
right?
Yeah.
Drop some questions in there. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah.
Share with a friend.
Become a member.
Tu amigos.
So we will see you guys next week, next time, next day, whenever we see another video up.
Yeah.
We're trying to do more videos more often. So you guys let us know what you like and what you don't like.
Y'all not sick of us.
Yeah.
And we appreciate it.
Yeah. So as always,
cuídense. Cuídate.
Areas Garce, take care and take a chance. And we will see you guys next time.
Y'all be safe.
Peace.
So something I wanted to point out is the indigenous people who are in this video. Most of us have not seen indigenous people except for in a history book. And I just want to make sure for all of you all who are watching who've never seen an indigenous person in real life, or I think we also may think that they live like in the Amazon, like we were talking earlier.
Or
you know what I mean?
You have seen indigenous people and didn't know you saw indigenous people.
Right.
Right.
But that culture, their dress, it is still alive and well, and is not just for those who may be disconnected from a colonized civilization. These are people, and it's so special being here in Mexico that we see. And they have festivals, they have events, and religious, ceremonies and things of that nature, and they are still here and living amongst us, right? So some of them work at the local tienda, and then on the weekend you may bump into them at a festival in Centro or something like that. But it's just something that I just wanted to, to express that they are still here, and they're even still, back in the States too. But because of the reservation system, they are so far removed from most of us. But when you are able to travel different countries, Mexico being one, and you are able to immerse yourself in the culture, you're like, oh my goodness, they're still here, and they still know their ways. They still know the medicines, they still know their customs and how to do beadwork on these elaborate outfits and all of the things. You know what I mean? Mm. It's just so special to know that it's not just a history book, because I think especially if, like I said, if you've never seen indigenous people in real life, you can look at a video like this and it triggers your historical, like your history class.
Right, because, in the U.S., you're pretty much taught that indigenous people are either on the reservation or they've been primarily wiped out, by some phantom diseases that came and they wiped out the indigenous people. But, yeah, I think once you get outside the U.S. or certain parts of the U.S., if you're in the Midwest or near reservations, you'll see
if you're in North Dakota,
more apparent what looks like indigenous people.
Yeah.
Granted, we probably see them all the time and don't necessarily know they're indigenous,
right? Because some could present as African American, or white, Like they don't look as, I think, what we envision as indigenous people. Whereas I think here in Mexico and probably other countries in Latin America, South America, they probably present, I assume, I can only go by Mexican experience, that they present more by what you expect them to look like. Darker skin, they tend to be a little shorter. When we have our cultural festivals in town, they dress up in all of the, regalia. You have some, I think, filtering of that in New Orleans with the Indian culture and their sort of headdresses and, the regalia. It comes out during Mardi Gras.
Yeah, during Mardi Gras, which is sort of like an offspring of what the original indigenous culture was. But yeah, they're, still here, still strong. Would love to have more of that representation throughout the entire continent and more of that education throughout the entire continent.
Yes. Oh, man. Seriously, like just to be able to go and not only that they're there, but they're there on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And not looked at as other. I think I've said this before, right? The indigenous people, they belong here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
More than anyone else.
It's like literally, like when we moved here, guys, I'm serious when I tell you, when you come from specifically the U.S., Mexicans are Mexicans, they're others, they're them over there, and they belong over there, why'd you cross the border kind of thing. And it's like, this was really their homeland. Like,
right. These are your borders, not their borders.
And it's so weird. And then you look at them and you meet them and you greet with them and you observe their way. You're like, oh, not to sound silly, like, you real people. You're not an other. And to me, that thing, it just hits me so hard sometimes, They're not an other. They belong here.
Yeah, I think Dave Chappelle has a joke where, probably from, I don't know, 30 years ago, where he says he met a Native American person. It's like, wow, I've only seen you in history books. I didn't know you were real
Page
people.
99, right?
Yeah.
In history class. Yeah. I just wish we could learn from history and stop destroying each other.
Yeah.
Like it sucks. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Bye.